Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Geneva Historic Preservation Commission for Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. Can you call the roll, please?
Hamilton?
Here.
Hiller?
Here.
Solomon?
Yep.
Stazen?
Here.
Warner?
Here.
Zinke? And Chairman Zellmer.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Okay, our first item on the agenda, second item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes for January 21st, 2020. Any additions, corrections? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from January
21st.
21st, as presented.
I'll second. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I will have to abstain.
As I.
Stazen and Zelmer abstain. Okay, our next item is the 5-minute field guide.
Thank you, Chairman Zellmer. Tonight's 5-minute field guide is about certified local governments and the SOI standards. From time to time, I do like to review what it is that are the guiding principles and the guiding organization of the Historic Preservation Commission. And so tonight, just to review again a little bit on what the certified local program is and what that means to be a certified local government entity. So this Certified Local Government Program was created in 1980 as an expansion of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. It was done under President Reagan, and the idea was to allow local governments an opportunity to participate in national preservation activities as defined in the original 1966 Act. The program was established as a partnership between local, state, and federal governments to allow all three units of government to work together to preserve the irreplaceable historic character of the distinguishable places in America. The program recognizes local units of government that have established an effective historic preservation program. So there's actually a certification process that was done by the City of Geneva by acclamation of the City Council to request to become a certified local government program through the Illinois State Historic Preservation Office. Once the application is approved, the local programs must meet specific criteria established by the U.S. Secretary of the Interior and the state of Illinois. So what are the CLG program requirements? First, a community must enact a historic preservation ordinance which is consistent with the state and local preservation laws. So if you recall, a few years ago we revised the local historic preservation ordinance. Not only was it commented on by the public and the City Council, but the State Historic Preservation Office also reviewed that ordinance to make sure we were still in compliance with the requirements for a certified local government agency. Participating communities must maintain an adequate and qualified historic preservation commission, which includes regular training and review of preservation principles and law. Part of that is what we're doing this evening. The state has just recently filled a 4-year vacancy for the Certified Local Government Coordinator, and he will be visiting this commission at some point in the next 8 months to observe our meetings and to make certain that we are following all of the regulations such as the Open Meetings Act and allowing for public participation in the process of preservation. It's also, as you recall, all of you have submitted a resume as part of your request to serve on the commission, and that also gets forwarded to the state of Illinois, and as commissioners come and go, new resumes are sent on a regular basis to the state for their review to make sure we're still meeting the qualifications. We also must maintain a system for the ongoing survey and inventory of historic properties within the government's corporate limits, whether or not currently designated and protected. So a lot of people are under the assumption that our role only refers to the area that's actually designated, but the state's expectation is that we'll also monitor other sites in the community and be aware of them and either recommend or encourage them for designation if we believe that that's the case, or if there's an adverse impact to a site that we believe may have historic significance, that we would notify the state of Illinois for them to pursue that. And then we must provide education and technical support to local property owners designated or rehabilitating properties, which is a large part of what I do on your behalf, meeting with applicants throughout the week on whether it's an issue about a building or whether it's actually following a request to designate a particular property or area of properties. And finally, we must provide for public participation in the local historic preservation program. So we do that in a variety of ways. We have the opportunity for public comment at each of our meetings. We also conduct regular public hearings that allow the public to participate. And when we review new regulations or new ordinance, we allow the public to comment on those changes as well. So how can the general public participate in the preservation process? I mentioned a little bit, our commission meetings are open to the public and held in the evening after the typical workday. Some communities will hold their meetings in the middle of the day or before 5 o'clock, which makes it hard for the public to participate. But here in Geneva, we make it at a convenient time for the residents of the community. We also broadcast our meetings on local access where this will be recorded and broadcast. And we also post our agendas and minutes on the website where they can be easily found by the public as well. As I mentioned, we have an opportunity for public comment, and that we schedule our public hearings for a variety of issues, including proposed landmarks, proposed districts, and the request for demolition of designated properties. I get this question frequently, but what are the benefits of the CLG program? The first is that it opens the opportunity for us to participate in state and federal historic preservation protection incentive programs, such as the tax assessment freeze program, which assists private homeowners in the preservation of designated owner-occupied properties. I've been told by the state of Illinois that Geneva is one of the most active communities using the tax assessment freeze. Winnetka and Geneva are ranking in the top 2 or 3 communities outside of Chicago. We have direct access to technical assistance from the Illinois State Preservation Office, where although the commissioners don't use that, you could utilize that. But as a staff person, I'm on the phone frequently with the state staff to confer with them to make sure that the information I'm passing on to property owners or to staff or to you is correct and up to date. Also get their opinion on areas that are gray issues that I'm not quite sure that my assessment may be 100% correct, so I do communicate with them on a regular basis. We also have access to matching grant funds for specific preservation-related initiatives. Some of you will remember that we sponsored a camp program here a couple of years ago, which was a training program through the National Alliance for Preservation Commissions. And we invited other communities. That was funded, 70% of that was funded by grant money from the state of Illinois. And then, very important to me as staff, but also it trickles down to you with some of the information I pass on. I have an immediate connection to a national network of preservation professionals, community volunteers, and other experts with valuable technical advice and perspectives on what's happening in their own local community. So very frequently, often several times a week, I'm either getting a question. We have several communities across the country that actually follow what we're doing in Geneva on a regular basis, and they ask how we did it, why we did it, and what the process was. And likewise, there are other people around the country that I talk with regularly through this network to get advice on providing guidance to the commission and the residents of the community. So what are the responsibilities of the CLG communities? First and foremost, it's to manage an orderly and effective legislative process at the local level. One of the things that we're very fortunate here in Geneva is that we have a fairly formal process and an accessible process. Not all preservation commissions around the state or the country are maybe as formal or as organized as we are. Some are very informal. But I believe that as part of the local government, that we should function like the other government commissions and boards, and that's what's expected of a certified local government. We are required to participate as an advisor if someone was to nominate a property within the Geneva municipal corporate boundaries to be listed in the National Register. We have a responsibility to provide comment to the State Preservation Office on that recommended nomination, whether we're involved with it directly or not. Similarly, we also have an obligation for what's called Section 106 or Section 707 reviews. So Section 106 is the federal program, Section 707 is the state program that is put under review if a project requires federal or state funding and is going to adversely impact or potentially impact a historic property. So for instance, when the Union Pacific was talking about the third rail, there were several sites that were originally identified as being potentially impacted by the third rail project. They eventually were taken out of the project, but if they had stayed in, we would have been asked to comment on the potential impact of that on those historic properties. Annually, I submit on behalf of the Commission an annual report to this Illinois State Historic Preservation Office. In that report, I'm required to identify our preservation efforts and activities to make sure that, or to provide demonstration that we are complying with the CLG goals, objectives, and requirements. In that also, you've seen the annual report, all of you. There's information about the types of projects we've seen, the number of projects we've seen, what our effectiveness is with having our recommendations approved by City Council, also your attendance and your participation in preservation activities. And then lastly, the responsibility is to fairly, appropriately, and consistently foster a local preservation program that protects local historic resources and promotes their appropriate preservation through the application of the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation, which we call the SOI standards. That brings me to tonight. You will see that we now have two large boards in front of you, one on each side of the dais, that actually has the SOI standards in an effort to assist you as you make motions and consider projects that you have those standards in front of you at all times so that you can reference them if there's a concern or an issue that you want to tie to the standards in regards to any specific project. So I'll have those at each future meeting from now on, and that should help us in our deliberations. With that, that ends my reintroduction of the Certified Local Government program. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
I don't think so. Bravo. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the review of building permit applications. 101 Hamilton Street, case 2020-002.
Thank you, Commissioner Zellmer, Chairman Zellmer. The 101 Hamilton Street came before us last month as a concept review, and now they are coming forward as a permit review. They have filed a permit application for the project. To refresh your memory, the project is located in the North Geneva Historic District that's listed in the National Register of Historic Places. It's at the corner of Hamilton and North First Street. Again, I've assembled images for the Commissioner's reference and for the applicant's reference. These are the conceptual plans that were submitted in January of the proposed concept, with retaining the historic Miller LeBaron house at the southeast corner of the parcel, and then surrounding it with 3 new townhomes. To refresh your memory, this is the proposed exterior elevations, the floor plans. Again, the parcel is located at the corner of Hamilton and First Street. As you can see, and if you've familiarized yourself with the site, a large portion of the site is undeveloped. It has been undeveloped historically. There was a large building to the north of this property that served as a large barn and carriage barn, but it was not on the parcel that exists today. So the lot has been historically vacant, about 3/4 of the lot. Provided the images of the Miller LeBaron home from both Hamilton and North Street, or North First Street. This is an image from about 1912 of the house, looking at it from Hamilton Street, just to give you some historic context. And to give you some neighborhood context, Again, the homes that were highlighted to the east, west, north, and south of the property. What you will notice in the proposed townhome design is a lot of the elements of these buildings have been picked up in the design to tie it into the architecture of the neighborhood. So as an example, on the image to the left, upper left, you'll see that the eave drops below the second floor windows. That idea has been incorporated into the townhome design. You see a street-facing gable on the image on the upper right, and then the variety of materials of shingles and clapboard siding combined are visible, particularly in the house at 101 North First Street. Again, more for context as you discuss this evening, to give you a little bit better idea of the neighborhood, and as your discussions progress, you may want to just kind of look at what the neighborhood looks like. So a view looking north on First Street, a view looking at the site from North First Street, looking west up Hamilton Street, so again you can get a relative idea of how the buildings are sited towards one another and the mass and scale of the neighborhood. And then two views from Hamilton Street looking easterly. So again, the concept site plan to the permit site plan has not changed, so it's the same site plan being proposed as under the permit review. I did mention in the staff report that they have met with the development team here at the City of Geneva, and several issues were brought up. One of the issues that was a potential concern of the development team was potential access and turning on the site. It is a tight site, but they do meet the minimum requirements for the drive area. But these are some of the movements and configurations that were discussed with the development team. Access out of the Unit 2 garage and the staircase, access into Unit 3's garage, etc. Minor circulation questions were raised. Again, the grading plan, there's an 8-foot elevation drop across this small lot. So the development has a lot of terrain to deal with in a fairly small, tight area. Again, reference floor plans for everybody's use, just so you know what is here. Again, the proposed elevations, the building elevations, again for reference. So this was the previous one was the west side and the courtyard side, and then this is the north side of the building. The commission had asked for context drawings of the neighborhood and with the house, and they have provided these drawings again for your review and discussion this evening. So this is the view from North First Street looking westwardly on the lot, and this is the view from Hamilton Street looking northerly on the lot. They have provided a building section and our design guidelines, as I pointed out in the staff report, do call for, as part of the design guidelines that were adopted by the city, to relate floor heights and building elements to adjacent buildings. I just bring this out that the floor-to-floor heights on the first floor is shown right now as 10'1", second floor is 9'1", and the roof pitch is 10 and 12. So again, the roof pitch is similar to roof pitches in the neighborhood, but the floor-to-floor heights are a little bit larger than what is found in adjacent properties. I also just wanted to point out that other examples in the neighborhood have dealt with the terrain difference and have done things like hugging the buildings close to the ground and letting the rest of the building fall off with the terrain. So again, not in this particular example, not large stairs up to the front door, but on the north side of First Street, there are houses with examples of large staircases up to front doors. Again, the elevations, so this is in relation to the materials that are proposed. The beige areas are proposed to be shingle siding. The green areas are clapboard siding with asphalt shingle roofs and standing seam metal roofing as accents on porches and some of the gable roofs. The materials that are proposed is a cultured stone, There is a lap siding proposed, and then shingles. I have pointed out to you in both the report and in this image that semi-permanent and permanent materials, the commission does have the option to discuss color. I point out that the cultured stone is shown as kind of a grayish color, and the native stone in this area is more of a buttery limestone, so you can decide if you want to contrast or match with the neighborhood. Textured siding has been called out, but we do not allow under our siding policy to have textured siding, so we'd be looking at requesting smooth siding and smooth trim. And then the shingle siding is shown in the drawings and renderings as being a straight edge, which is the type of siding, shingle siding that's been most adopted and most approved by the commission. The entry door is a wood grain finished embossed panel steel door is what's being proposed. And the windows in the townhome are being proposed to be a vinyl cladding, which again, typically vinyl windows are not normally approved in the historic district. However, the line that's being proposed, the Crest Line 500, does meet the minimum requirements of the window policy in that it does have an option for an applied vinyl mutton on the exterior with an applied wood mutton on the interior of the glass with a spacer bar. We have not seen other proposals in front of the commission with applied vinyl mutton, so this is the first time you're seeing an actual vinyl window that has that option available, which is a minimum requirement of our window policy. The garage door is a 20-panel garage door, again embossed steel, and with glass lights. And the roofing, like I said, is asphalt shingles with accent metal standing seam roofing. The seam examples that were submitted are all ones that are characteristic of historic standing seam metal. We've had some proposals where people propose something a little beefier or heavier, but these are all a narrow batten on the standing seam. So with that, that is a quick overview. I will let the applicants give you a more detailed introduction and review of their project, and then you can ask and answer questions for them. Bob Akers. They're all there. This goes back. That'll go forward. Okay. I don't know where you want to start.
We want to start by talking about the existing home?
Yeah, we could.
Okay. Robert Akers, architect. This is Joe Stanton.
Joe Stanton with Hamilton Homes LLC. We want to talk about the existing home for a second. We had looked at possibly raising the house. I know it's something that wasn't on Michael's wish list, but we were looking at that. We also looked at the possibility of dropping the the elevation on the west side of the property. We couldn't do that for two reasons. One, for every foot you dig down, you have to dig 1 foot out to be able to hold back the soil. We'd be well into the property next door. Plus, talking to Public Works, the sidewalks, they have to be handicap accessible. If we dropped the property that much, there would have been stairs and it wouldn't have been allowed. So we decided that we were going to keep the grade the way it was. The existing house, instead of trying to raise it, not only was it, not the first choice, I guess, we looked at the possibility of causing some problems with the house, lifting it up. So we decided to leave it be. We can keep the water away from the house. The channeling system that it has right now has been working fine. There's no damage to the foundation or anything. We'll be able to curb the driveways up to that channeling that's there right now, and we'll put retaining walls along First Street and Hamilton on the corner to hold that slope. Because like Michael said, we're talking an 8-foot drop off from corner to corner. So we'll be able to leave the house, right where it's at, and we'll handle it with curbing for the water on the driveway side and retaining walls on the street side.
Just to add to what Joe said here, today we're presenting the 3 new townhome units to you, not the existing home. We plan on addressing that as early as possibly the next meeting. but we're still trying to figure out how we're going to deal with some of the framing issues in the home to straighten out floors, walls, roof sags, and then determine how we're going to handle laying out the new home there. It's been offices prior to that. And as we start to investigate that, we are happy to have any of you out there that would like to see it. We've talked to Michael about setting up something as early as possibly next week to have you guys come in and look at the home, see the basement.
You're welcome to go to the inside of the house and look at what's there. We'd be happy for you to see it. It's an interesting basement there.
So the plan has never been to do anything to harm this home. We thought we might raise it up, lift it up out of the ground and put a new foundation in and a new basement. Currently the home sits on, probably less than half of it is actually on a basement. It's mostly on crawl or right on the grade. So we thought we might lift it up and put a basement, but after talking with Michael and staff meetings, we realized that if we are truly trying to hold the historic character of the home, that we can't change the grade. So we discussed that in great detail and how we might handle the rest of the property. Decided we would leave it right where it's at, and I think that's the biggest issue for this meeting is how this home fits in with the proposed 3 new townhome units. We will be addressing more with the siding, with the roofing, with the windows as we kind of delve into the home over the next month or 2 months here. But the staff at the last meeting had asked for the home's relationship to the proposed new townhomes and the elevation of the neighboring homes, which is shown here on this slide and the next slide. So we show the height of the home to the west here, and here we show the height of the home to the north. It is important to note too that we are meeting all of the city's requirements under the new zoning for this particular property in the downtown district. We are not exceeding the height requirements, and we are taller than the existing home, but we feel that this fits well into the historic character and look of the surrounding neighborhood.
I think one thing to keep in mind too. I know we're going to bring the corner house, the existing house, up next month, and we'll talk about it more. We're not looking when we do the historic home. When we come with plans for that, we're not looking to duplicate what we're doing on the townhomes. The townhomes are a project on itself. So the historic home, it'll just complement it. So we're going to try to work with the historic home to, bring it back as natural as we can for what it should be on its own, and it will naturally complement the townhomes. We're not going to look to mimic the townhomes on the new one. That'll take a direction by itself.
Well, I appreciate you incorporating the existing home, the historic home, in I think I might have asked for that. But I guess one thing in looking at this and comparing the two and going back to SOI Standard 9, it feels that the architectural compatibility feels very disconnected to me. There's with the new townhomes, there's so much more detail, even the, having the windows 4/1s compared to the 1/1s. The historic home is very simple. It's very, no frills is not the right word, but it's a very simplistic style, and the two just feel at odds to me. And if they are going to be connected in some way, so that it's one
They're going to be connected by a pergola roof that will be up above, so that we can allow water to flow between. Actually, right in this view here, right where you see the garage door, between the two units, there'll be a pergola connecting the two, Unit 3 and the existing home, so that they are in fact connected.
Right. It just, for me personally, and I'm not sure other commissioners, it feels very disconnected, not very compatible.
And I appreciate the comments. I think we have a fine line we have to, walk here. It has to be a viable, project, and, historic homes, a lot of them, they're very simplistic, and, very few of them are as detailed as the modern homes. So, we're trying to build something. It's a new home project. So we're trying to build something that's not incompatible with the neighborhood. We're not trying to duplicate an old home. We're not trying to build an old home with modern material. We're trying to build homes that will, reflect what's going on in the neighborhood, but be a home that what people want right now.
Right, I'm just pulling back one of the previous slides that Michael had here just to show some of the other homes that are in the area, some of the other buildings, in terms of scale, detailing.
No, and I certainly know. I mean, I live in that neighborhood. I know the homes. There is quite a variety, and there are some very architecturally ornate, and there are some very, very, very simple. I guess my conflict is the two on the one space.
Okay.
Just seem at odds.
Okay.
If I may, I think it's selling the historic house a little short to say it's a simple house. I think it's been streamlined. If you remember, we've been looking at another house at 227 Ford that's been shingled purposely in the mid 20th century to streamline the architecture of it. I don't know where they're going to be when they come back with the historic building, but again, we've seen some of Robert Long's work, and we know that he does. Who was the original carpenter on on what I believe was probably the First Street side. And you can see some of the semblance of the Greek revival there. So I think it may appear to be a very simple house now on the site, but depending on what they find when they start doing their investigation, I think you might be surprised at it's not necessarily as simple of a house as you think it is in the way it appears today.
And unfortunately, I can't see that yet, but thank you.
Have you thought of any solutions from the staff analysis of the City of Geneva design regarding some of the things about the massing and about the porches? Have you put any plans together yet to address those concerns?
I guess I'm not really sure what the concerns are you're talking about. We've met with the staff, what was that, last week. The biggest issues that came out of that were just how we were going to address this existing home on the site, and that if we were in fact planning on lifting it up, moving it, or lifting it up in place and building a new foundation underneath it, that that would need to be addressed with this submittal, and the home be part of the project, and then also issues of tying it in with the historic nature of the home and changing the grade wouldn't necessarily be what they would be desirable. Then it was utilities. They were worried about storm utilities, how we were going to run in electric, how we were going to, if we had room to bring in our new electric, bring in our new water service, bring in sewer. They were concerned about elevation and grading, and we talked all about all of that. At no time, I don't think we've talked anything about massing.
A lot of their comments were more, anecdotal conversations. If you were there, they weren't so much concerns, like when they were talking about, snow removal. It makes it sound like they have some big concerns. We just discussed that this is the type of lot where you have to have a company that removes the snow after each plow. It's done all over the place. We talked about, they talked about, hey, in a perfect world, there's enough room for an extra 2.5 foot, setback that would make it easier, but it's not required. It was just an anecdotal thing, and it doesn't make it more difficult for the city. It would make it more difficult for us, and we don't believe it is. So I don't see the majority of those comments were more just anecdotal discussions. The majority of the work had to do with the flow of the property, how we're getting rid of water. I don't think there were any major concerns that we walked out of that meeting worried about. There.
There are a couple of things that they talked about. They said that although the allowable maximum heights per zoning regulations, the massing and height of the proposed townhomes are significantly greater than the adjacent properties, particularly the historic Miller House that is being retained on the site. And, you know, by the site plans that you have there, you can see, I mean, those big townhomes swallow up that little house. And also with, as was brought up, with the differences in the design elements, I mean, it really minimizes the historic house there. They also discussed that some of the design elements on the neighboring properties do not reflect the floor-to-floor heights of adjacent structures as noted above, which results in the new buildings not being compatible to the scale of the neighborhood. They also talked about how the bigger townhouses are going to be blocking natural light going to other houses adjacent to it. And they also talked about how the porches incorporated in the proposed townhouse, the scale of those porches is not compatible with the historic porches found throughout the neighborhood because of the increased floor-to-floor heights of the proposed townhomes, and entry doors are higher, and porch heights are also increased proportionally. Have you thought about any of those suggestions?
Yep, thought about them. We've discussed them. We like what we've designed. We feel it fits into the scale of the neighborhood. I brought back up this image here that has 4 of the neighboring homes. Yes, we are higher than the historic LeBaron house. Are we taller than what's in the neighborhood? No, we are not. We are adjacent to the properties that are right off State Street, where you have 3-story plus buildings that are over 35 feet in height, that are 3 stories tall. What you don't see here is across the street from the Batavia Enterprise building here is the Shodine building. It's about 2.5 stories along first, and then as you go down the hill, it's 3 stories plus in height. We are not taller than what is in the neighborhood. This is what was set forth by the new downtown zoning district, so we are meeting those requirements, and we are attempting to match historic characteristics of the neighborhood.
And I don't think we ignored any of those comments or issued. If you look at the one home that's on the northeast corner, because of the slope, that house, looks to be the same height as the Miller house, but it's a much larger house. It's such a slope. That's probably another 8 feet lower from the corner. So that means the 2 lots, there's a 16-foot, height difference. So and because you have an empty lot, the zoning was put together with regulations for the neighborhood, and I don't think we should be limited to just the 2 homes next to us to say we have to have something compatible to those houses. We're way under lot coverage, and we're way below the height requirements. I don't think we, when you look at all the surrounding buildings, including all the commercial buildings across the street, I don't think we're out of line height-wise with the neighborhood. As far as blocking the light, anytime any empty lot is built, you alter the sunlight a little bit. I don't think we're doing any more or less than any other, infill project. So
I kind of like what you're doing. I mean, I think it's a creative project, and I like the, how you've approached the whole thing. I was a little confused when we're talking about grade. Where exactly does grade get measured from on a lot with this type of a slope? It appears that the one in the western side, are you measuring from the highest point of the property up to 34 feet? Or are you measuring up from the foundation up, which is 5 foot above grade already?
We're required to measure from the first floor, the finished first floor.
Okay, so it's not the actual grade level, it's from the foundation.
Right.
So you're actually, when you say you have 32 feet here, you add 5 on, you really have 37.
Right there,
Yeah. 32.11 from the first floor of this unit.
Yeah, you say
and we're
32.11, but actually you've got a 5-foot foundation there, right? Is that what?
We have
Quite a bit, yeah.
we've got retaining walls around that house to bring the grade up, and then we are up, probably 4 feet, maybe 3 feet from there.
And those are issues that had to be addressed based on building department comments too, because when you have a 8-foot difference from one corner of the lot to the other corner of the lot, and we're only allowed to have so many stairs, so you can't handle everything with grading, we're forced to leave that that exposure on that side of the street.
So the grade is not necessarily from ground level at the top, it's from where you put the foundation.
Is your question in regards to the height that we're showing there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, where do you start your measurement for the height of that building?
He's showing it, is that, I assume that's correct per zoning, correct?
Yes.
I guess that's my question.
Yeah,
I mean,
that-
when you have a lot that's graded like that has an 8-foot drop,
Right.
do you measure that from the center of the lot, a median mark, or is it the highest point, the lowest part?
It's not height
where's
from
that
grade,
measured?
it's height from top of first floor.
Right.
So it, on a sloping lot, it doesn't take into account the slope of the lot, it takes into account of where that first floor is set.
And how is the first floor elevation established then? Because I mean, if, being the devil's advocate on that, I could raise up the first floor another 5 feet and still be in compliance with the ordinance on a slope site. So what's the correlation between the first floor height and actual grade? There has to be some relationship between the two. And it looks like to me already that the height of the first floor, even on the, which would be the west side, is fairly high above grade at that point, which takes the whole massing, it makes it even much bigger. But I guess a single question that is possibly answerable, is there a correlation between the finished first floor height and established grade? Or criteria for that?
George, the simple answer to that is absolutely, yes, there is. So in this site, the heights are all driven off of our top of foundation, and that is based off the grade that, I don't think we have anything to point with here, but at the west, let's see, southwest corner of the property.
Right.
Okay, thanks. Oops, I just lost the...
At the high point of the lot, basically.
It's the high point of the lot, but it's also driven off of the neighboring lot. We can't be shedding all the water back onto the neighbor to the west.
You have a little bit of a swell
right in
there.
here
Okay.
is where it's the highest, and actually not on our property. So
Okay.
we have to be able to create a swale to get water to not channel back onto this property, but to come away from their property, come around our buildings, trying to match in with the existing elevation of the sidewalks here, which we're using the existing driveway here. This actually doesn't meet the requirements that we would ideally want to have a driveway, but we're using what's there and matching up with the existing sidewalk. So these elevations set the entire property. And then, of course, as we've discussed here a few times, there's 8 feet of drop from here to here. So
But on that southwest corner, if I may, what is the difference in height between the first floor and grade there?
It's about 18 inches.
It
Yeah.
looks like
Yeah.
at
It's-
least 5 or 6 feet.
no, the elevation height. I'll go back to one of the elevations.
Not
It's
the
standard.
elevation,
That's
but I-
south elevation, unit 1? Is that where you're at?
Let's see it here.
Yeah, I can't read it.
This
It's probably,
you're talking about this area right here, and this is a standard. If this was a flat site, all the way across, this would be a standard difference
Yeah.
between your grade, your top of foundation. You put
I
you put a
see.
plate in for your floor joist. You run your floor joist, and you're typically
Well,
up.
I'm seeing where the site does slope, and I see your swale there, though.
Right. So yeah, there's a swale
as it
here.
extends. Okay.
So usually you're about 18 inches, as I think one of the members said. You're about 18 inches above.
That high.
No, but because the grade drops off, it starts to really look like you're way out of the ground. But we're holding it as tight as we can here. We even had an hour-long meeting with our engineer, trying to do everything we could to push this unit down a foot, 6 inches, anything, and he can't get it in the ground any farther for us.
Part of the problem that comes in is we have restrictions on the sidewalk too. It has to be handicapped, and we can't put stairs in there. We have to have a, gradient to a handicap thing. So when we start messing with the elevation, we have to immediately, for every time we make some slight change, we immediately have to work with Public Works. Have we altered the sidewalk? So,
No, I understand now. Since I wasn't at this meeting, I'm doing a little catch-up. I do have one other question, though, regarding, the discussion is, well, in terms of the historic structure to its neighboring buildings, there are some elements that are captured, et cetera, et cetera. But what is confusing to me to some degree, what is the purpose of the pergola connection between the historic building and Unit 3? I could see that we're trying to treat this as two separate structures, but the implication of the pergola, to me, is that we're trying to connect this into one unit, and then that just amplifies the difference in
the short
character
answer
and
is
size.
it's required.
Right.
It was, for what reason?
Well, we're trying to meet all of the requirements of the code. We're not trying to ask for any changes to the code, and that's kind of been the direction we've taken the whole time with David. And in order to do that, we have to have the buildings connected. It's a historic home,
Okay.
so
But then we're saying that really it's a separate unit and should be compared to the character of neighboring structures, but on the other hand, we've connected it.
Commissioner Stazen, the really direct answer to that is that you cannot have two principal structures on the same zoning lot. So originally, they were keeping them separated. When staff looked at that, there's a zoning issue. We have had other properties that were trying to have a detached garage connected to the house with a pergola. We considered that attached. So staff suggested that, the simplest or one of the ways that they could look at it, and that's the way they chose, is to connect the two buildings with a pergola structure.
yeah, George, we talked about putting a retaining wall between the two of them, some sort of a landscape wall, but that created issues with sheet draining the site.
I know what you're doing. Okay.
And truthfully, the pergola, rather than addressing it some other way, I think, adds a little character to it. There's a big walkway coming from First Street now. It's a much more welcoming entrance in there, so we weren't.
It does imply a connection between the two structures, and then one could argue that there should be more similarity since it's a connected structure.
Yeah, I'd say when we look at the when we look at the existing structure and what we do on it, it's an open book. We can look at the historic pictures, what it looks like, the materials, and we'll be given a direction. On the new ones, we have to look at what works for the area,
Sure.
Sellability, things like that. So they really are two distinct and different projects.
Okay.
We are trying to tie them together with materials.
Yeah.
When you do an addition to a historic home, you never want it to look like it was always part of the home. You want it to stand out as an addition. But
It would be nice if we saw a little bit of how that pergola detail is going to work. I mean, it's going to be somewhat of a defining feature on this side here, so it would be nice to, even though.
The detail would be in the plan for the other house, because it'll be coming off of that one, and it would make sense that it would be in conjunction with that house, so that's where those drawings would be coming in.
Okay.
One of the questions that I just thought of and they won't have the answer tonight, but you're talking about the pergola now, and because of the heights of the first floors on the new units and the height of the historic LeBaron house, it would be a challenge for you how you're actually going to connect them, because it looks like you're going to be above the roof line. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how you will stay tuned on that.
okay.
One comment, Michael was talking about like the stone and stuff like that. The nice thing about, the new townhomes, it's, we're not following, our interpretation or your interpretation of what used to be there. So, like, we wouldn't have a problem, we put a preference, what we thought would look good. We don't have a problem going with the stacked limestone look for that stone. Michael didn't like the tin we had chosen, so we picked another one that followed his guidelines more, which is fine with us. So the comments about the materials, when that comes, we're wide open for that, to make those make those changes. We don't think it'll change the concept of our project because you may want a different stone than we have. So I don't see that being a problem.
Thank you for your project. It's impressive. There's a lot going on there, and I respect that you've got a myriad of requirements. A lot of your objectives are sometimes in opposition with the other. Obviously, we represent history and the historical preservation side of it, and I have to echo Jim's concerns that it does feel like giants moved into the neighborhood. Now they might take cues from the rest of the neighborhood. It certainly, in my view, at least certainly from this view here, seems to dwarf that home and is not, it could be more respectful, I guess. My question for you is, do all of your 3 proposed townhomes have the same floor-to-ceiling height?
Yes, they do.
So it seems to me that you're taking cues from the neighborhood for your floor-to-ceiling, but not from this home. Is it conceivable that those could differ, and you might take one of these homes and make a nod towards this one to defer its scale and massing to this one? And you don't have to answer that now, but it's something that, if we're going to be respectful to it, one of the things that's respectful is you have to differentiate it, but you also have to put it in context. And I know that that's a great challenge that I probably can't resolve yet. If you could give a nod to it in some sort of other scale. I mean, here, the windows, the doors, the foundation, everything just seems like it came from another country, like the Swedes moved into the Shire.
Okay.
And that's just how it feels to me.
Well, I don't disagree with any of you guys, looking at this and seeing these townhomes above the roof heights of the existing home. We had every intention of raising this home 5 feet, maybe 6 feet, to better deal with the grading on the site and to better match the scale of the proposed new townhomes. However, we took a change in direction with comments from the staff, with guidance from Michael, because we do want to preserve the historic home. There's no doubt about that. I think everyone was wondering at the first meeting, what are we intending to do here? And in doing that, we're keeping it at the existing grade, because that follows the principles for historic home preservation. So as a result, you have townhomes that are, that you're seeing here, that they are taller than what's existing, what's there. What you do lose here is, you'll have materials and colors that'll be tying these together. You do have a surrounding neighborhood, not just one home that sits out, in the middle of a farm field. There are buildings and homes all around these that are of the same size, scale, height, and the same look. We feel this fits into the neighborhood quite nicely.
Yeah, my final comment is I don't think I have a basis to object. I think it's a strong proposal. I don't know if the floor-to-ceiling heights are a requirement. There is a market for the not-so-big home, architects, Sasanska and whatnot.
When we're looking at it too, we have to. There's only 3 homes, and it's in town infill. We're looking at probably about $150,000 worth of site work on there, which wouldn't be bad if there were 6 homes, but there's 3. So we've added 50,000. So we have to look at sellability too. So because these are all discussions we've had. Every comment that's been brought up has been a discussion point for us already. And we talked about maybe lowering them. But if you start not providing those 9 and 10 foot ceilings, it's just a product that not as many people want. It's difficult to keep the cost down when there's only 3 of them. So it's important that we have a product that we have faith that would attract people. And it's we're going for the people that want to live in downtown. The walkability. Of it, but so we can't make the decisions in a vacuum. When we're looking at the slope, we have to look how it affects the sidewalk. When we look at our height, we look at the neighborhoods, and we look at sellability. And we'd be disingenuous if we didn't say that has to be in our mind the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wish I was at the last meeting, not that I would have, I've dealt with a lot of issues, and usually it's a problem of keeping less than 32 feet in other areas of other suburbs and things like that. And, you know, what I've done in the past is drop the top floor plate and keep the joists at 9 foot and keep the ceiling at 9 foot, but drop the plate down so that you can actually you get almost a story and a half, and that brings the scale of the building down. I don't know whether I have a lot of reason to say that I agree that the scale of this development seems to engulf the existing home. And it doesn't, you know, it's not really 24 feet either. It's closer to, from floor line, it's probably 22 feet. Because if you go floor line to floor line, to be apples to apples, it's considerably smaller. And you can just see by the height of the windows on the two floor heights. I guess I don't know. The only place I can object to this is that it doesn't quite meet, or it doesn't follow the neighborhood in scale. And I know that you have houses over there that are of a similar height, but I'm not sure they're the same scale and roof, prominence of roof. But again, it's an innovative way to look at getting infill into this city. And I know that we're trying to look at different ways to deal with that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I understand and respect what you're saying. I think, though, we're looking at two of the homes, and we're saying, how do they match up to these two homes? And, you know, we're adjacent to a lot of other buildings, and the scale is not so different. The zoning was put in to reflect what the height for the entire district, and we're under lot coverage, and we're under the height that we're allowed, because we had those same concerns with you. So I think we've had these same arguments with ourselves, and this is what we came up with.
Yeah, and I think with the, I don't know where, I don't know. I mean, I guess it was number 9, which I can't read because I'm not that tall. But it doesn't seem to be as congruous with the rest of the, and you are right, there are some areas that are larger homes across, the commercial across the street would be a good example of a taller building, but I think in that 2 or 3 blocks, this will be the largest and tallest buildings you got, and most massive. But
And I don't think we're trying to build a project to mimic anything in the historic district. We're building a townhome project which takes these types of massings, and we're accomplishing that, still staying under all the zoning regulations and requirements. Not even getting close to it. We've stayed under both massing and height. And like I said, your comments that you're making are comments that we've had this discussion over and over. And what's funny, sometimes, you know, when you have a lot of time, you know, you start way off to the left, you guys start to the right, and over the course of a few meetings, you know, we come in. We tried to put a project together that would reflect the area, that would work well. We took comments from last week, comments that Michael sent us. We addressed those, and you know, we tried to stay within the zoning requirements, and I think that the townhomes aren't meant to mimic any of the historic structures, just to fit in with it.
Do we have any other comments about that from the commission?
Well, we have asked other projects to address these issues. I mean, I'm thinking the townhomes that are over on, is it Campbell and Second and Fourth?
Yes.
Those came in, and they were a little bit high for the neighborhood, and we asked them if they could come back with some options, and they actually were able to come up with a compromise. So, I mean, I think something could be, I think there's something here that could be done, but I don't know exactly what it is.
Well, I think one of our compromises that we looked at was that we're trying to preserve the historic home as it is today, not to raise it, which was what we desired to do. We wanted to lift this home up. We had moving companies come out and look at the feasibility and put together a plan to do that and raise it in place, and which is it's possible to do. And if we lift this home up out of the ground, some of those issues that you're having today, when you look at the scale, those are going to go away. But we're trying to also to understand and follow the guidelines of historic home preservation, and therefore leave the home where it's at. This is all while we're meeting the requirements of the code. I think it's important to note too that this is the first project that's under this new downtown zoning district. So if you're looking for comparable projects, I don't know that there is a comparable project. You know, this is the first one.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily with this townhome, but as Al had stated, we've had several instances where homeowners have put on extensions, whatever, that we felt were going to be a little bit dwarfing of other structures on either side, and they have come in with roof changes and things just to, you know, kind of create the massiveness on us. You know, and the other thing is that, you know, even if you raise the historic home a foot, that's not going to make a whole lot of difference in comparing to the difference in height between that house and the townhouses surrounding it. I mean,
I think it's more of a site problem than it is a massing problem. Say sidewalks didn't come into an issue,
well,
and we brought it down to 8 feet in the corner. You know, we take 8 feet of land away. We put these homes there. They're not dwarfing anybody. If anything, they're kind of small.
I mean, if you looked at, that's unit 3 behind the historic house.
Yeah, we're calling that Unit 1, but yeah, that's to the west there of the historic
So, I
home.
mean, you know, there's the historic house right there, okay? So you've got, what, 24 feet roughly of height there from ground level?
That's
like
for the existing home? Yeah, it's 24'1" or something like that, yes.
Okay, and so, and you show 32 feet on the other one from the first floor, not taking into account the difference going to the ground level, which to me looks about at least 6 feet. So you're looking at a height of close to 40 feet from ground level, not first floor. I understand what you're showing there. But so you got 40 feet versus 24. Okay, so if you raise the building a foot, whoopee, it's still being dwarfed by 15 feet. And I think this is part of what several people have said. I get where you're going as far as measuring it from the first floor, but when you've got, you know, a raised first floor as high as it is, even compared to the house next door, which is being also measured from the ground level, you know, it's going to dwarf that house by over 5 feet. So, I mean,
Yeah, I think if this home shown in this elevation to the right was put at grade, would be a lot more respectful. I don't know if that's possible, feasible, or financial, but it would be less, because it's almost comical that the bottom of those windows is higher roughly than the top of its neighboring ones. That's the incongruity to me. Not much of a respect or nod to that particular thing.
You know, it's not that I understand where all your comments and stuff are, but you know, in the historic district, we have such a such a wide variety of different homes. You look at the new library, you know, with it built, where their windows are at, you know, in relationship to the height, how big it is. But it, you know, worked for that lot because of the limitation.
I wouldn't agree with that. Yeah, don't go there.
You won't. I'm saying, you know, we have to look at, you know, the reason they're zoning and heights like that is to say, in general, this is what we need to do. You can't exceed this. And we didn't. We came way back from that. Also, I don't think we'd be having near this conversation if the land was flat from corner to corner. The problem is in our particular area to corner, it drops off 8 feet. Like I said, across the street, that house is, you know, from this view right here, the house to the right is, you know, you know, they look not so different proportionally from each other, but there's a big difference between the two. It's the, you know, the additional 8-foot, you know, drop from there. So if you're looking at a home built 16 feet higher on the western part of our property versus this house there's going to seem to be a disconnect. But it has more to do with the site than the fact that we're submitting an unreasonable, you know, home.
No, I think you've already made accommodations with different heights. I recognize that and appreciate that. So just a final question is, and maybe it's completely out of the box, but do all three have to look exactly like each other? You know, I guess that's the one thing. When you're putting in 3 townhomes,
Right.
do they all have to be identical one to the other in scale, shape, materials?
The reason, you know, we had those discussions, and a lot has to do with cost. You know, there has to be some sort of affordability. We don't want any more $1 million, you know, townhomes. You know, you limit the people. And if we were to make each one different, each one with different materials, each one, you know, with a slightly different roof line, we're raising our cost of building considerably, the amount of time it would take to build. Then we have to pass that on. Like I said, when I was talking about the site, you know, we're spending about $150,000 on the site, but we only get to divide it among 3 homes. So each one's carrying a $50,000 price tag. So we're very conscious at what can we do to keep this as affordable as possible. And one of the things is to make it, you know, to make all the townhomes sort of complement each other. We added, by having scale in and out, dimensions in and out, that's how we broke them up, rather than material and height. But it was a conversation, and a lot of time and money was spent drawing different things before we came up with this.
And each floor plan is different. Not one of the units is the same. And their square footages are different, and they're programmed the same. So they have, you know, family rooms that are open to the kitchens and powder room, and they have a master bedroom and 2 additional bedrooms. So they're all programmed the same, but not one floor plan is the same. So we've tried to create variety.
You know, and to make them affordable too, they're almost like specs. You know, no one's going to come in and say, okay, pick the cabinets, pick this. You know, to make this affordable, we have to go in, we have to build them. And we have to take advantage of doing all the granite countertops at the same time, all the cabinets at the same time. And while they'll all be slightly different, they'll be from the same guy, you know, installed at the same time. And it's a way for us to keep money out. While they'll be custom, they'll also be a spec dough. We're building it, then selling them.
If I have more of a comment, if we may go back to that, it's going the other way. The photograph of the neighboring properties, that one there. If we look at the historic property and these other 2 structures adjacent, to me, the roof slope on the new is substantially, now I know there's that other structure over there that has much more of a pitch, but everything around, including the historic structure, has a much flatter roof pitch or slope. And so in terms of massing, on your elevations of your new design, I see a heck of a lot of shingles where I don't so much on these others. So what was the rationale to change the roof slope on your new structures?
You know what we looked at when we were designing it, we weren't looking to duplicate at all the existing structure.
Yeah,
we wanted to be, we wanted them to complement each other. So mimicking that structure at all was taken off the table immediately, because we didn't want to try to build an old home.
But the one to the right is a different pitch, slightly, I think, but it's not near the roof pitch that you have on your new ones, and it increases the height and massing substantially with 10 and 12.
I think you're looking at the lower image then, along first.
Well, and the one above it too.
The one above is the same pitch as what we have.
Is?
Yes, and the one below is, it's not what the LeBaron house is. It's probably lower than our pitch. I tried to measure what the pitch of it was, and I don't know exactly. but it's certainly, it's not what we have, and it's not the LeBaron House. It might be an 812, but you know, one of the things that I wanted to, if we could go back a little bit, you guys were worried about the scale of this project. The one thing that you lose on flat elevations is perspective, and I think this image here does a good job of showing you just how the elevations change across the streetscape. And these townhomes that are in behind the historic LeBaron House, if you're crossing the street and walking down the sidewalk here, you're not even going to see. You're not going to see them. You're too close to the existing home to even see the roof structure behind it. It doesn't matter if I put a flat roof or a 412 or a 1212, you can't see it. You know, if you come across the street, there's trees that are on both sides of the street. The chance for you to actually perceive it as we do in a flat elevation are nearly impossible. Maybe if you were across the street in the neighbor's house in the second story bedroom window looking out, you might see what we're looking at on a flat elevation. But as you move up and down the street, this is gonna...
You're preaching to the choir for a long time in my tenure.
Oh.
I've advocated for perspective drawings to give really a feeling for what the streetscape, which is our purview, would look like.
Right,
Elevations sometimes are misleading, and you're right. On a street perspective and presence, it may look entirely different, but
Yeah, if you take the house on the right and you were to move it to the west of the Miller home, that house would all of a sudden seem to dwarf the Miller home in there. But each home by itself worked fine in the neighborhood, but because it's on one side of the street versus the other, it's a different perspective.
We can't comment on that since we don't have that view.
It's right there, yeah. Here's right there, I think in the top image, that's what we're looking at here. That home next to the LeBaron House.
I guess I'll say, first of all, I support the project. I'm glad you're focused on doing something on this lot. The homes, the townhomes as they're designed, I have no problem with. I mean, we've approved a number of homes, some down on River Street not long ago, that were very similar. So I have no problem with that. My concern, I will say, is I don't feel that it is respectful of the historic home.
Okay.
And I am concerned when we come back in a month what we're going to see, what the plan is for the historic home, and how they're going to come together. And I know we're going to have.
Well, our intentions.
We're going to want to maintain the integrity of the historic home. So I don't know how limited we're going to be. I don't know what's original. Yeah. And I'm feeling like we're going to be stuck.
With the historic home, because of construction seasons and stuff, that's the reason we split these properties to do it this way. If we had to lose another month, it makes it difficult to get the project done in this construction, season. We know that the two homes have to be, compatible, and it doesn't matter to us if it takes 2 or 3 months to work back and forth on the original structure. It's one of the reasons we, instead of looking to put 6 townhomes here and ripping this one down, we decided, you know what, that would probably put us all the way into next construction season. If we instead decided, instead of a 6 townhome project with this house gone, let's commit to saving this house, going with just 3. We still followed all the codes, the setbacks, the height, and submit it so we can start the site work and the work for the townhomes now. And it doesn't matter if we're 2 or 3 months behind on the other house, because it'll be more cosmetic. We can be working on it during the winter to kick this down the road. Really puts the project in limbo as far as we're concerned. We'd have to relook at it from the get-go. So, with all due respect, if you guys say, let's kick this off and see how everything looks together, then we have to do the same thing. We have to look at the project. If we're not making these concessions to work within this construction season, then we have to look, are the concessions we're willing to do on the other house, are they are they worth it? Are they financially worth it if we have to sit and carry this project? And like I know I've said it a million times, so has Bob, you know, we were very careful, and, you know, David, you know, warned us over and over to make sure we did nothing to create a special use or a variance, you know, not to get too close to the lot coverage, not to get too close to the height, and we're way under all of those things. We respected all the codes and stuff, and I think everything, you know, and Michael, you know, made note of it on the original drawing. We spent time and effort to pick up elements from all the existing homes on there, you know, so we didn't look to mimic one home, complement just one home. We picked details from, you know, all of them. So we're, you know, we're asking for you to look at the project and look at some of the limitations and problems we had with the slope of the project, the handicap accessibility, the retaining walls, all the things we had to look at, and decisions that were forced down our throat because of these limitations, and look at the project in that light. And, you know, does the project work, taking all those things into consideration?
A question, because Al mentioned about the pergola. So that's something that I think we need to see a little bit more of, because the thing is, you know, as it says in here, is that pergola is kind of a key part of the zoning aspect of this project, because you have to have a connection.
Ties them together, right?
And because of the dramatic elevation change between Unit 3 and the original house, how is that pergola going to work? Because it's like, the front
pergola,
door is like at the roof height.
We had two options with the pergola. We had the option of addressing it with the townhomes, but if we did that, you know, we're taking a leap of faith of what we're doing with the original structure. By making the pergola part of our presentation with the original structure, we can make changes, alterations to that pergola based on what decisions are on, you know, on the Miller house. But if we would have shown, you know, a pergola, how it worked with the existing home, there's a good chance we'd have had it thrown out when we tried to incorporate it into the historic home. So how it looks and how it comes off the historic home is probably way more important. We have to start at that end rather than the other end. That's why we had to spend more time on that pergola. But everything you say is absolutely right, and it all has to be addressed. It just seemed to make more sense to address it with the historic home.
I'm inclined to approve the request, but subject to, you know, review by staff for materials, and especially with the pergola connection, and if there's any additions that requirements.
Thank you, Dave.
But you've already been upgraded, and there's not much else we can do. That's what we wanted.
Yeah. If we could take step back, one, there was the comment about the stone on there. What was the desire on the stone? What direction do you want that material to go?
Well, I think,
Batavia? You're thinking more of like a Batavia stone that's common in the
I
area?
think we'd look for something
Stack limestone.
limestone, and actually, we could probably, could we see that next time, Michael?
You have approved projects that ask for materials to come back for final approval at another meeting. You have done that if you wanted to.
That would slow you down if,
No. That would be fine. We'd be okay with that.
I don't know what, is there any more discussion from the committee? Is there anything from, anybody from the public want to add anything? Because we'd have to get a motion to to approve this, and then take a vote on it. So, does anyone have we'll put together a motion?
Well, I'll give it a shot here. We have some, in our pack, we have some ideas, but I would vote to approve the request for the construction of new townhomes at 101 Hamilton Street, subject to the modifications of the site design as noted by the engineering department, the city, as you talked about with the snow removal and those concerns and that kind of stuff, also regarding the pergola, because that's a key piece to be able to do this project, to be able to have that connection to the existing home because of the single unit zoning. And also that, we, at the next meeting, get the review of materials because there's issues regarding vinyl windows, the finishes on the siding, the stone, and such.
And I think we'd want to see actual samples of the siding, the samples of the stone, and the colors that they would be in to kind of, to work with together. Not to,
Yeah, no.
not to, but we would want to see actual samples of the, since we've never done a vinyl window in the historic district, we would like to see that to make sure that that's compatible with what we think it should look like.
Okay.
Or whether it meets the requirements of the standards that the city of Geneva put together.
Yeah, we don't want to set a precedence that we can't.
And I think that without seeing a sample of the window, it would be.
Would the standard always be wood, or aluminum clad, or, are there, options, or is it always wood?
I defer to Michael to answer that.
Our window policy allows for a lot of different materials, and again, it differs from requesting replacement windows in a historic building versus new construction. New construction just says that the windows must be compatible and they must have the same design details, again, the applied muttons. So in new construction, you have a lot more latitude. In a historic building, replacing historic windows, there's fewer options. But composite, aluminum, fiberglass, vinyl, like I said, this is the first time someone's brought a vinyl window that comes close to meeting the stated policy. So it's a new beast for the commission to consider.
And that's a true divided.
It's not a true divided light. It's a simulated divided
but
light
it
like
has
we
a-
approve.
It has a
Yes.
piece of,
It has a filler
Gives you
between the,
cost more
and the air gun.
and the outside is actually a vinyl.
Correct. The vinyl is glued to the glass like a simulated clad mutton or a wood mutton that's glued to these windows that don't have true divided lights. Again, the information that was submitted,
Tried to find your picture of the window.
it's back. Keep going.
back?
No, keep coming forward.
All the way down.
It's at almost the end of your presentation.
Oh.
One more. There you go.
There.
So what the commission has really typically looked for in the applied muttons is you're looking for something that has had a shadow or looked like a puttied glazed unit. It appears to me that this might meet it, but again, it's a sketch, not an actual sample. But what is shown here actually meets the intent of the window policy for new construction.
So do you want me to try to tie it together?
Do you want me to read it?
Read it, and then we can see whether we can
Yeah.
modify it.
Yeah, I've got a motion by Solomon to approve the request for 101 Hamilton, subject to the modifications of the site design.
Correct.
As noted by the city's engineering department. Review plans for the pergola, I'm sorry.
Right.
And that the applicant bring back sample materials at the next meeting for the vinyl windows, wood siding, and stone material. Anything else?
It wouldn't be wood siding, it's just
Just
siding,
siding,
just
sorry.
siding.
All exterior materials, just to keep it
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, that'd be easier.
Exterior materials.
Exterior metals, and we'd want to see the color of the
Including windows.
windows and
Exterior
roofing,
material.
specifically the metal roofing color.
Roofing, metal roofing color.
Couldn't have said it better.
What windows do you know for sure have, they've approved before? Because we know, we did a lot of search and made sure Crestline did this. Jowin does it, and Jowin makes a great window. What windows have you, approved before?
Don't quote me, it's been 7 years of looking at windows, but we've approved several lines in Marvin, one line in Pella. We've approved Anderson Architects Series. We've approved We did have a gelled-in window come through, but I don't think that project was ever completed with the gelled-in windows. So there's a lot of options out there. And like I said, for new construction, what you propose, I think they just want to touch and see it and make sure what they're agreeing to, because we haven't had a vinyl window approved yet. What you've shown meets the intent of the window policy for new construction. It would not meet for replacement. So, I think what you're saying is you just want to see it because we haven't looked at this particular product.
That's specifically it. Yeah, I mean, I think
We could probably get a sample cut design of both the crust line and maybe a gel one and bring them both in, and look at them.
I know that Pella makes we've approved a Pella fiber. Have we approved a Pella fiberglass yet?
I don't believe it was a Pella fiberglass. There was a fiberglass proposal. And again, depending on the era of the house and the details of the windows, we've approved both the Pella Pro line and the Pella Architect series, depending on the architecture of the home.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay. So I think we're good. We're good with the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Right. Hamilton,
Aye.
Yeah,
Hiller,
I think this is a challenging lot, and I think we have to give some latitude because of that, so I would vote aye.
Zelman,
Aye.
Stazen,
Aye.
Warner. Aye. And Zelmer.
Aye.
That passes.
Passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Sure. One thing real quick before I go. I don't know if I introduced Chodines to Hoffman Lumber or Hoffman Lumber to Chodines, but Hoffman Lumber went into Millrace Inn before it was demolished and took a lot of the wood down. When I built my house on the corner of Burgess and Caneville, all of my stair treads and my platforms are made with the reclaimed wood from Millrace Inn. It looks awesome. There's more wood available at Hoffman Lumber from Millrace Inn. If you know anybody that would be interested. It's a nice, believe me, it really looks nice. The wood came out great. So Hoffman Lumber's in Sycamore, and there's wood available if anybody wants it.
Nice old growth stuff, thank you.
Good to know.
Okay. Next on our agenda, our Secretary's report.
Thank you, Chairman Zelmer. I just have two items under the Secretary's report this evening. The first is 307, 309 West State Street is the storefront bulkhead modification. If you recall, in December of 2019, a proposal was made to come back before the commission for a consideration of how to locate the fire department connection, and there was quite a lot of discussion amongst the commissioners about what the proposal should be or what the solution should be. We looked at what had been framed in currently at the time and looked at analyzed historic photographs and decided that the original proposal was just to raise a single panel to accommodate the fire department connection. And staff offered an alternate with the continuous horizontal bulkhead all the way across the storefront, and the agreement or the staff's understanding was that the commission approved the horizontal line with a couple of provisions. That one is that the fire department connection would be located up in the trim. There was a question about having it lower and boxing around it with trim, and the commission specifically said they wanted to keep it up out of the recessed panels. And then there was the question about putting the correct number or replicating the historic number of panels beneath the windows. The drawing below this, you can see the original architect's drawings showed the 10 squares or 10 recessed panels below each of what was the historic storefront, and showed them at the kind of the appropriate scale based off the historic photograph. What was installed was 5 panels under each of these storefront areas, and what was discussed at the December meeting was to, again, raise those so they were square and put a baseboard type of feature so those squares could be more to what the original historic photograph was. In looking back at the discussion, it looked like the commission had agreed to 5 recessed panels essentially, but it was supposed to replicate the historic look where there actually were 10, but in reading the minutes and listening to it, it looks to me that you were discussing 5. Also, the fire department connection was not raised to the full height where it was agreed upon in December, and was actually boxed out in exact contrast to what the commission had approved. So when I saw this, I notified Dennis Kintop, who was here in December representing the project, and said that, you know, this is not what was approved, and I felt uncomfortable approving this on your behalf because it was not what was discussed. You'll also notice that you can't see too well in these pictures, but if you go out there, there had been another piece put in here to make very long vertical panels. Those have since been removed to result in these 5 panels. So what my understanding was, what the commission was seeking was at least a minimum of something that looked like this, based on the discussion at the December meeting, and that the fire connection would not be boxed out, but would be outside of the recessed panels. The applicant is now requesting that the commission approve what has been installed, and because that was contrary to what your approvals were, I felt uncomfortable doing it, so I'm bringing it back to you for discussion and resolution as to what the commission's preference is. Alex Teipel is the architect, Dennis Kintop is the contractor. They're both here this evening to answer questions or take your questions. But again, this is contrary to what was approved in December, and I didn't feel comfortable as staff approving this without bringing it back to the commission.
That's also not the same standpipe connection that was on the cut that was shown on your earlier. That seems pretty industrial. The other one had a.
It's a cap.
Yes.
Well, the other one showed that brass cap, I believe it was, with a flush mount on wall. That's not it.
Yeah, but that again, if you remember, that was brought forward to give the commission an example of what a fire department connection looked like, a straight connection. It wasn't the specified one. It was just an example of a straight.
It'll be the one you want. It'll be the one I showed you originally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because
that's just temporary.
Oh, okay.
So how did we miss the boat on this? How did this happen?
Yeah,
I guess I have to say that I'm the one that messed up. I don't know.
Is there a new complete elevation that represents what is installed at this point in time?
well, we can just
I'd
look
like
at
to see a whole perspective. We compared elevations forever, and that was the basis of our decision, as I recalled, trying to compare it to the original and photos. Do we have a complete elevation right now?
A photographic elevation?
No.
Architectural elevation?
Why?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Because I'd like to see the whole thing to really get a feel for how the whole elevation reads with this new design, as opposed looking at individual elements on it.
Can we go back to the original?
Yeah. That's a big difference.
Is there another picture of that, or is that it? That's it.
We've had different pictures. I didn't,
Yeah.
we have over, I think, 50-some images that have been presented over the
Yeah,
time,
I
so.
was thinking of the more historic fiction.
Right.
Is that the Simon Building?
Yeah.
I've got it right here.
The Kendall Building?
This one says Simon. Is this what we're talking about?
No, I don't think that's it. I think that's a different one. No.
Do we have any estimate of what it would cost to put it the way it was approved?
Yeah, it'd be somewhere in that $8,000, because I'd have to tear it out. I can't just cut it off, you know what I mean? It isn't something I could just cut it off.
You mean the standpipe itself?
The standpipe's in the exact right spot that it's required by the city of Geneva. It would
It's
be
all
the
the
wood trim that I'd have to lower down. The wall, the whole thing would have to come out.
Such a prominent property and such a big, it's gonna be there for a while. It's disappointing. I feel your pain.
What you've got here is in keeping with what kind of was originally there. The proportions aren't exactly, but they're close. You could go back to 10 divisions if you wanted. That's the way we had it. Michael didn't like it, so we took them out and made them closer to square. We're at a height that was compromised for the fire department to get it where it is. They would like it higher. We're at a height that they're willing to accept, and that determines the proportions of those panels.
Mr. Chairman, can we make sure we're having?
Yeah, could you state your name?
Alex Typo, you know that.
But to use the
What?
microphone,
Okay.
Alex.
And use the microphone too,
For the
sir.
record, it's Alex Typo, the architect.
You're not using the microphone, sir.
Come up there.
I don't think you need to be aggravated by this.
Why not? Alex Typo, the architect.
First of all, you weren't at the meeting that we had, and you don't know exactly what was stated in that meeting, do you? Why are you pointing at Mr. Kinta?
Because he told me what was done. The point is, this is in keeping with the original, I don't know what the right word is, quite frankly, with the spirit of the original building. And we've long since passed the original building. This is not a restoration.
It's not what we approved, though. So
Is it bad?
I think it's not what we approved, and I'm not sure it's what we
didn't-
thought was going to be out there.
Excuse me. He coughed and my hearing is bad. I couldn't hear what you said to begin with.
It is not what we approved.
Can you approve what's there now?
That's what we're trying to talk about. You're saying that it doesn't matter that we should just approve it because it's there.
You should approve it because it's appropriate for what.
And it's what's
It's
installed.
appropriate for what was there and the compromises that are necessary for the current situation.
What else, what do you think, Mr. Warner? What's your opinion?
I don't know if I see the profile of the trim. And I'm just curious, just the dimensions of the top trim board to the bottom. You know, is it like 3-inch trim at the top and 5 at the bottom?
Well, the bottom varies because there's 2.5 inches of difference in grade across the front of the building. So the base just depends on where you measure it. The rest of it, if I believe, was 3 inches, and then it's beveled. Everything is beveled so the water will run away and not sit on top of anything.
So it's just a straight level.
Could you, Mr. Kintock, could you come up to the mic, please?
Sorry.
My name is Dennis Kintop, and the base varies. I believe it's 2.5 inches across the 48 feet. So it's much smaller on the west than it is on the east. And I believe we ripped everything to 3 inches and put a bevel on it. And then the cap itself is 2 1/4 solid cedar, and then we put a bevel on that. Everything is so the water will run away from the building, and then the white is 1/2 inch plastic.
Which piece?
The sheet good that you see.
The panels?
Yeah, the panel.
And they're smooth?
Smooth.
And then the image of, the oldest available image again, one more time.
Michael, could you put that image up there that kind of superimposed what the thought process was? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that one.
But at the last meeting, I recall, we did establish that these infills tend to change or are changeable, or were even originally designed to be modular, to be changed out in the future. Isn't that correct? Each window section could be filled in with something.
You mean if the operable windows were taken out, they could be refilled in with a fixed picture window for the display? Yes, that was determined, yes.
And the sill height is still 24 inches,
Sill height is 30 inches, if I'm not mistaken.
so that's up as well, okay.
I think we knew that that was going to be at that. I think that was the approved level, though.
Well, that's what I stated in all my emails from the original get-go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you had height issues with how far the
standpipe was what we were trying to struggle with.
Again, December, what was discussed was originally the request was to have a 40-inch panel to accommodate the 30-inch high standpipe. In conversations with the fire department, they were willing to drop it to this height and allowing a straight fire department connection to be allowed. And so the thought was not to have the height, but to go to the minimum what the fire department would allow for the fire department connection, which allowed things to line up pretty close to where the historic bulkhead had been in relationship to the brick piers.
Okay.
It could never be 24 inches. 18 inches off the ground, 6-inch pipe, there's 24 alone.
Right.
Then you add
Yeah,
a couple
I
inches with the trim that goes around it, now I'm up to 26. 2 1/4 inches on that sill, now I'm up to 28 1/4, and I'm at 30 inches.
I think we understood that
I apologize, I was sick, Mike was there, you know, my responsibility, my fault. But I'm talking about like 1.5 inches, and that's the part that's difficult for me. I'll do whatever I gotta do. But it was never 24 inches.
This is the same slide that was presented December 12th, so
Yes.
it's just to have the date changed.
That I didn't create.
Right.
If you look at my emails, I said 30 to 32 inches on all the emails that I sent you.
I'm not disagreeing with you what your emails.
We're not disagreeing with, we're disagreeing with how the panels look on what the definition of the panels were. I think that's, and how that interfaces with what's there.
Well, at this point in time, since the sill height has changed and the panel sequences, it's almost academic if we're trying to, from my perspective, to try to preserve one little element to this when everything else has changed. I think you know, right now, from what the situation we're in, everything kind of went out the window. So it's hard to be, for me anyway, to be, you know, very meticulous about one of these defining elements when pretty much everything has changed.
Well, I think it's what we expected to see and what we see there. And I think that's,
I see two separate issues. As far as the height is concerned, whether it's 30
oh,
inches, whatever.
I think that's irrelevant.
That doesn't matter, because once again, that was driven by the requirements for the fire hookup.
Well, that was actually the most important thing to me. I would have deferred then to the other one, just raise up the single section where the standpipe
I thought what
to
we were,
maintain the presence. Well, you could have differentiated the look on that it wouldn't, you could still maintain a consistent bulkhead height and just differentiated where the standpipe connection was. If we were trying to preserve some of the image and proportions of the original storefront. When the height changes, the proportions are totally destroyed. And so at this point in time, like I said, it's academic what we're doing, but I don't see it.
I guess when you look at the existing, on the one that's out there right now, does that reflect what you were expecting to see?
But there's some necessities of,
Well,
you know, since we wanted to maintain the consistent still height with a standpipe connection that couldn't be at 24, you're right, from
well,
the construction
let's go back to the
we're
picture of
obligated.
what's out there right now.
Right. Well, and from that, I don't know whether I like it or not, because I can't see the proportions of the windows in relation to that, nor the clear story above it. That's why I suggested earlier, I would like to see the new elevation overall. I don't think we're specifically focusing on individual, at least I wasn't.
I guess I look at it
elements.
and I'd rather just have those, rather than having the fork come up, I'd rather just go straight down, and that would be acceptable to me. It is what it is, and move on. Do you understand what
I dig where you're going, rather than having those little cutouts there.
cutouts there? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
No, sir.
Okay. Instead of the two cutouts, just go straight down and make two square panels, or two
Get rid of
panels.
that. That's simple, yes, sir.
Yeah, and that would be acceptable to me, I guess. Does anyone else have an issue with?
No.
Question maybe for staff is would that bottom panel have ever matched the height, have been sympathetic to that of the plinth on the column?
No, the historic photographs, when you blow them up, show that the relationship is actually between the design elements of the brick pier.
I have no objections.
Okay. Al, do you have an opinion?
No, I'm good.
I think that
So to be clear, the one thing we're asking to change is that
Yeah.
center
that
box
center
is
one,
just going to square off.
square off, so you have two panels.
Just in that one spot. Everything else stays the way it is.
Exactly.
Okay?
Okay.
I will follow through with that.
Thank you.
Is that cool?
Thank you. I was sick that day that he started it. You know, I wasn't there to be able to measure with him, so I certainly didn't want to be, I didn't mean it that way.
No, I got it.
Okay.
So the other item I have under my secretary's report is an invitation from the Landmarks Illinois organization.
Thank you.
For those who've never participated, the Landmarks Illinois group sponsors the Suburban Preservation Alliance, which is a informal group of people who meet 3 times a year around the suburban area of Chicago, specifically designed to address suburban preservation issues. This next meeting will be March 21st, and it will be at Naperville. I don't have the exact details, but it usually starts at 10 a.m. and concludes about noon. You are all welcome to attend or not attend, but it is a good opportunity to meet with other Preservation Commission members, hear what other communities are dealing with preservation issues in their own communities, and just network. So I will pass that information on to all of you when I get the final details of that meeting. But again, it will be in Naperville on March 21st. And that concludes, it's a Saturday. And that concludes my staff report this evening.
Okay. Any new business from the commission? And none from the public? If I can get a motion to adjourn? Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.